Hey, yeah, I guess I took a little bit to make this, to finally make this, but yeah, I don't, it's, man, I don't, it's been a couple days after this, and I still can't find the words to like even describe it, or I thought I could take some time to really like formulate my thoughts, because here's the thing, like, okay, so as the title says, Kentaro Miura is passing. It was completely unexpected. It was completely unexpected. That's really like the best way I can. That's the emotion within me that is most like resonant. Like, even, I mean, of course, like, I'm sure I'm going to be sad, and I'm sure the grief and the pain is going to set in at some point, but it just hasn't yet. It's more so like, what the hell, It's just like, what the fuck, like, I'm struggling to like to even like formulate like, or just verbalize like what it is that I want to say. The hell is that? Sorry, I clicked something. um it it's like Berserk hasn't been present in my mind. Like, of course I want to read a new chapter of Berserk when it drops, right? But it's just kind of like Berserk has been on hiatus, and and honestly, because it has been on hiatus, it hasn't been present in my mind, which is very, I don't want to say funny, but it's very, I guess, strange and ironic, because Berserk is one of my 10 favorite manga ever, and Guts is one of my 10 favorite manga and anime characters ever, you know? So that's really what it was. Just completely out of the blue, unexpected, and because of how unexpected and how out of left field and how out of pocket it was, the unbelievability of it is, it's still so fresh to me. It's still so resonant to me, and that's kind of how. I don't want to liken this or compare it to it, especially something like death of a real life person, but it really reminded me of like Kobe's death, because Kobe, like, I just woke up, and then my brother was there, and like, I was like yawning and shit, and like, if you guys don't know, on the weekends, like, I sleep a lot. I sleep a lot. Like, I don't wake up in the morning on weekends. I wake up in the afternoon on weekends. I sleep a whole fucking lot on weekends. But this Sunday I didn't. This Sunday I didn't. I got up early for whatever reason, and I'm all sleepy and groggy. And then, so I'm over there, and my brother's here, right? Like, I'm using my brother's space right now, and then he just looks over at me. He's like, "Money." I'm like, "Yeah, what?" And he's like, "Kobe died." And then, like, I'll it took me like a minute to like register that, like, in my head, right? Or just to like to understand what he was saying. And then I remember my reaction being like, what, like, literally, what, like, I remember myself, like, it was something almost like out of a fucking cartoon, like, what, and I had to check my phone and everything, and it was just like, what, it's so unbelievable, right? And lo and behold, that was the same thing here. My brother, like, this happened on Wednesday, like, May 19th, and I was watching the Spurs playing game, and the Grizzlies, and they were already pissing me off, right? Like, DeMar DeRozan was going 1 for 11. DJ didn't shoot well either. I think he was like, what, 3 for 14 or something, like, I don't know. Anyway, the Spurs had already been pissing me off. Pop wasn't doing a good job coaching. He subs in Jonas Valanciunas. If you guys follow basketball, he had like 20 rebounds against us, and then we put in a guy that we signed towards the end of the season, Gorgie Deng, who I've actually always been a fan of. He puts him in, and then he's doing his own against, JV, and then he subs him out back for our starting center, Pirtle, who I'm not a huge fan of. So the Spurs game had already pissed me off, and I was already like reeling from that. Not reeling, but I was just so annoyed from that, right? And then all of a sudden here, like, my brother, he like, I hear him, like, he has like these big ass headphones here, right? He has these on his head, so like, he's on Discord with his friends or whatnot, and he's like chatting or whatever, and then he's like, I just hear him go like, what? So then, like, I don't give a fuck. I'm just doing my own thing, right? And he's like, what? No way. And then he looks like, and then he looks at me. He's like, Manu. And I'm like, yeah, what's up? And then he says, Kentaro Miura died. He's like, Kentaro Miura died, right? Now, the first time he said it, I didn't comprehend what he was saying because I didn't hear what he said, right? I didn't hear him say the words Kentaro Miura. I heard him say like Kentaro, like the sound that passed through my ears wasn't Kentaro Miura. The sound that passed through my ears, that registered to my brain, it was like Kentaro's or something. Like I couldn't understand like what it is that he said. So I asked him to repeat it again. He was like, it was like, wait, what did you say? He's like, Kentaro Miura passed away? And so the second time he passed, I was like, what? And that same shock, that same unbelievability that I felt at Kobe's death happened here with Kentaro Miura. It was so unbelievable. And then I was like, because I was already on my computer. I was already on Twitter. So I didn't see anything. And then I log in, I'm like, yo, he died an hour. Like, the Berserk account, they announced it an hour ago. And somehow I hadn't seen it. I'm like, what the fuck? Because I was already on Twitter, just like scouring Twitter and shit, right? Already with the Spurs game and everything. And then Anant, and like my brother, his name is Anant, he tells me, like, yo, Kentaro Miura, I'm like, what? And then at that point, that unbelievability that I felt on Wednesday is still fresh. Monday, it's 3:40 in the morning on Monday. I have to get up for work, right? Well, technically I sleep through work because I don't have that many calls, but that's besides the point. But that unbelievability is still so fresh to me. It's almost like, what the fuck, Kentaro Miura? And you know, it's really starting to put like, I mean, it's put life into perspective. Don't get me wrong, yes, but it there's something more beyond that. It's just like, this is so unbelievable. That's what it is. That's what it really is. I can remember the first celebrity death, right? Like, Michael Jackson died in 2009, right? And I was in 10th grade at the time. And, you know, I knew he was famous. I knew he was an icon. That didn't really hit me, right? I think the first celebrity death that really, like, that I was like, yo, what the fuck? Was Paul Walker in 2013. Like, I think it was 2013. I think that was the first celebrity death. But for whatever reason, dude, I don't know what it is. Like, the last couple of years, I'm not trying to necessarily, I mean, Kentaro Miura is a celebrity, but I guess more so I should say, like, famous people, or like famous people's works that I've like really come into contact with a lot. In the last couple of years, man, Mac Miller in 2018. Nipsey, my favorite rapper in 2019. Kobe. Chadwick Boseman. You know? Kentaro Miura now. It's just like, what the hell? All these left field, out of nowhere deaths happening. It just seems like it's happening like at least once a year nowadays. Nowadays. Once a year. And that's really like that's just really, I mean, of course I'm hurt, of course I'm sad, but it's just, along with that sadness, and like I said with Kentaro Miura, it hasn't hit me yet. Like, honestly, like the like that really deep pain and sadness hasn't hit me yet. Of course I am sad for like his life, and I'm gonna talk about that later. Or not sad for his life, but sad that, you know, that he's not able to complete Berserk, because I'm sure I'm getting, I'll talk about that a little later in the video, but it's just more so like this sense of unbelievability, and just like not refusal to accept that someone is dead. It's the unbelievability that it actually happened. And I know that sounds kind of similar, but what I'm trying to get at is, like, I'm not here saying like, no, he's not dead or nothing like that. It's just like, what the fuck? Like, he died? That's kind of the reaction that I'm getting. It's like, he died. And I remember like a couple of tweets, like an hour after it happened, I saw like people like tweeting after, like when they first saw the news, they were like, I did not expect to log into Twitter and hear news of Kentaro Miura passing. And that was the crazy part. Kentaro Miura, he didn't pass on 5/19, he passed on 5/6. May 6th. He passed on May 6th, man. And like I said, this unbelievability about it happening is, Berserk has been on hiatus, and like I said, because it was on hiatus, it wasn't the most present and direct thing in my mind or what I was thinking about. But whenever a new chapter dropped, of course I would be excited to read it, you know? And that's really what it is. Like, just this unbelievability. I don't know, man. I really start to think about like the friends that I really start to think about like the start of like when I joined YouTube. For I don't know how many of you guys have been following me or how long you guys have been following me, but I really started this in when I was in college in 2012 or 2013. And a lot of people, a lot of friends that I made online, Zoro Fanboy 124, Uber Hikari, the anime hero, King of Lightning, you name it. These people loved Berserk. They consider it the greatest manga ever. They consider Miura the greatest mangaka ever. Whatnot, and they really love Berserk. King Recon, he's a huge Griffith fan. You know, and I myself didn't read Berserk until I want to say 2016, maybe 2016 or 2017. I want to say maybe 2016. But I made so many friends. Twilight Yonder, Sal. I've made friends with Ali. Ibs. These are names that they may not mean anything to you, but a lot of people we bonded together over not. No, we didn't bond together over Berserk, but Berserk was always like a common hobby and a common manga that we all loved. It was a series that we all loved. And I really want to talk about like the start of when I joined YouTube. When I first joined YouTube and I joined like the our I'm not gonna call it the anime community at that time, but that portion of the anime or we found there was this community of people that loved anime and manga. 2013 with Uber Hikari and King of Lightning and all of them, and you were in streams and you just listened to them make videos and talk and everything. That was really the start, being in discussions with them where I started to look at series more critically, where I started to hear the phrase complex writing or complexity in a character or, you know, just that really that word complex or, intellectual, whatever you want to say. And as of late, in some of my streams, I've started to, or not I've started to, but I've always talked about how because one series is intellectual and really, pushes the intellectual capacity of a person, that doesn't make it better than than a series that doesn't do that. That is just there for just for funds, just for the sake of being entertaining. And I've always held fast to that argument. Now that has nothing to do with Berserk or Fairy Tail, or I'm not comparing series or anything by saying that. But the reason it's so important was because those friends that I made and those discussions that I was in, that was really the start of me trying to look at series a little more critically, or like my own starting. That was really the start of it. I looked at things like complexity in a character or character development. This was the first time that I started hearing like those sorts of or started to take seriously those sorts of things and criteria and phrases and that sort of thing. And just when the news broke, I just really started to think about them because obviously I love Berserk. I do love Berserk, but they love Berserk. That's like in their top 2 manga, top 3 manga, top 1 manga maybe even. And they must be so hurt, because Berserk is like, for at least for that community that I started with, that was really the genesis and the start of like being like critical, like critically thinking about something and looking at how intelligent a series is. And I just really feel for them. Of course, I'm sad myself too, but I'm really sad for them as well. And what the interesting thing about Berserk is that, by all accounts, I probably should not like it, right? I probably should not like it. I remember there was like this really famous, it's been 8 years or 6 years now, but there was this guy named Erwin on who was part of our community, and he was like in the Otaku Battle Dome, which was like a channel that pitted like characters against one another. And Erwin, he would say like how he doesn't like Berserk because of the medieval aesthetic, and I kind of understood that, looking back. Oh, now I understand it because I myself, I don't really like chainmail and armor, and I don't like the little magic circles and the magic spells. I don't really like Western fantasy, like that aesthetic in of itself, right? It doesn't really interest me, right? And in the case of something like Berserk, which has a lot of that, it really shouldn't, right? But the writing of the characters and like the strength of Guts's character, like him being a mercenary, how he fights against fate, and that's another thing. I'm not really one. The last couple of years, I really started to like embrace the idea of fate, and maybe even destiny, but really fate. And I think that's really like such a powerful and strong thing to care about. And it's funny because Berserk fights against, or Berserk Guts fights against that in Berserk, right? And his entire life story, right? I've never like Guts may not be my favorite character. He's one of my 10 favorite anime and manga characters, right? Don't get it twisted. But he's not my favorite character. My favorite character is Goku, and then Gintoki, and then Kenshiro. Those are my three favorites, right? My favorite video game character is Snake, followed by Kazuma Kiryu. I have never felt more sympathetic and sad for a character than I have Guts. Guts' mother died, and he just spilled out of her womb onto some onto some muddy ground. Was found by a band of mercenaries. He was betrayed by his father figure, raped by someone as a child, right? Then he grew up to be 18 years old, 19 years old, something like that. Grew to love a woman. Then he was betrayed by his best friend. Said best friend raped the woman that he loved, and then all his friends were killed for the sake of sacrifice. That is an extremely traumatic and painful story for any, background for any character. And that's why, like, I never felt more sympathetic for a character other than Guts. I never felt more sadder for a character other than Guts, you know? And just to see Guts be able to, like, still fight fate like that, try to fight his destiny, to survive the sacrifice, and that's really what it is, right? Just to the way that he survives. That's really what when I think about Guts, I think about survival, you know, just raw survival. All these terrible things have happened to you, but it's hardened him like into like this maybe not the most moral man, but definitely a hard man, you know. And that's just really inspiring, man. That's really what it is. I don't know, man. It's you know, when you think about creators, not just Kentaro Miura, Quentin Tarantino as a filmmaker, or I don't know, what's his name, Kim Jung Gi, right? He's a famous South Korean artist who's one of the best artists I've ever seen. You guys should Google him if you guys don't know who that is. I've always felt that you may not have to read interviews by them, but whatever work they create, whether it's a manga or a movie or whatever, I've always believed that what they believe, whether it's what they believe about a certain issue, their morals, the types of characters they like, how they drew it or how they shot, this particular scene in a movie, or how a particular scene in an anime was animated, and the storyboarding and all that. Those sorts of things can reveal traits about the creator's character, right? And I definitely feel like that's what it is with Kentaro Miura. This Kentaro Miura, through Berserk, if you read Berserk, you can see that I think he's a very feisty man in terms of spirit. That was a guy who really had the balls and the strength of will to survive, When he goes and draws as beautifully as he does, he knows how much effort and pain it takes to actually like to draw something that majestic and beautiful, whether it's the dragon on top of the castle, or Griffith extending his palm onto Ganishka's face and the light behind him, Fantasia coming to life, all these sorts of things, right? And that's really what I think about with Berserk, because people have and the reason I'm bringing this up is because people talk about like, oh, is Berserk going to be finished and not. And I do think that's an important question. I think it's, of course, I love Berserk. I want it to be finished, right? It deserves to be finished. That's the thing. Berserk deserves to be finished. It deserves to be finished because it's this great story. It's such an inspiring story. It's inspired Dark Souls and even something like Black Clover. Its inspiration can be found anywhere. I've been playing Devil May Cry. Where do you think Dante got his big ass sword from? Rebellion, right? I was Guts and Dragon Slayer. You know, and the reason I say I want Berserk to be finished. Here, let me rephrase that. The reason I say Berserk should be finished by Miura's hand is because a creator's work is how we get to know them personally. That's their life, That's their life. And sure, part of me selfishly wants to, see the end of a story. But part of me also wants to see the end of Berserk for the sake of Miura's satisfaction. That's what I want to see. Because you can just tell, man, Miura put his soul and heart into that manga. And that's what he's devoted his life to. There's this great quote in Gintama where I won't spoil if you guys haven't watched it, but they were saying that there's this great quote which I think is super important. Where basically it goes like something that is more important than one's life is what they choose to devote their life to and what they choose to protect, right? And I think that's what Berserk was to Miura. I think that's what Berserk was to Miura, really. He put so much of his own life and not just blood, sweat, and tears. You can't physically take the thoughts out of your head. It's not like you can conjure up some like ethereal energy in the palm of your hand, like put it to the side of your head, conjure that shit up, and then just say like, "This is my mentality," and then, put that onto the fucking paper, and that's it in physical form. I'm not saying that's what he's doing, but he's trying to channel that onto his paper, right? With ink and paper, he's trying to channel that, and I don't even know where I was going with that. It's just the unbelievability of this that's ringing so true. But man, it's just completely out of left field, and Berserk. I just love that manga so much, and I love Guts so much, dude. I don't want to say it's a shame that it's not going to be finished. Apparently, there was something about his assistant saying that he'll do his best to continue it. Maybe there were notes, but I don't want to say. It's not so much like I want. Like, it's not so much that Miura is dead, but Berserk is going to continue. That's not what I want this to be about. I want Berserk to continue for the sake of Miura. That's the way I look at it, because he devoted his life to that manga, and it just really, man, I just feel for him that Of course, I feel for his family and his friends. If you guys didn't know, Miura was an assistant to Ippo's mangaka very early on. And I just feel for his friends, but I feel for him for his unsatisfaction at finishing Berserk. And I think about my friends who love Berserk too. It's just I can't believe it. You know, out of out of out of everyone to die, I did not expect to hear Kentaro Miura had passed. And then second of all, Berserk's not going to be finished by his own hand. That's just not right. No matter how I try to justify it in my head, or I try to find like some meaning behind it, maybe some higher meaning, it just does not seem right to me. It really doesn't. It yeah, man. I don't. And that's kind of what this is, right? It's like the unbelievability of that, the fact that I feel for Miura and his unsatisfaction as a creator. The fact that Berserk is not going to be finished by his own hand, that's not right, no matter how I try to look at it. And it's not a matter of me. It's not a matter of me being a fan. I'm a skinny Indian guy who lives in America. I'm one of 7 billion people on this planet. My opinion does not mean anything. But I would like for Berserk to be finished on his terms, you know? Because that's what he devoted his life to. That's really, he loved Berserk. He put his life into that stuff, you know? And again, here's what the irony, you know? I read Vagabond 2 years ago. Vagabond jumped over Berserk for me, even though I always liked Berserk. Even though previously I'd liked Berserk more than Vagabond, you know? And it's just time. It's just time for a reread for me. I was thinking about doing a lot of rereading and rewatching during this quarantine. It might be time to do that now. But yeah, man, I don't. People have been saying like like thank yous. Thank you Miura. I love you Miura. I respect Miura. I love Miura. All that stuff. And I'm definitely going to be part of that. Just a formal thank you to Kentaro Miura. Because really, that I remember when I was reading Berserk and I was talking about it with Ali. Guts' character was really inspiring, just for him to be able to fight his fate the way that he has. And the other thing I love about Berserk is that even though Guts is fighting his fate, it's made abundantly clear that causality, however he tries to fight fate, causes very little disturbance in the entire wave of causality. And I think that's a beautiful. It might be a futile or a nihilistic message, but in some strange way, I kind of like that. I just think it makes Guts a much more stronger character in spirit. And I think that's really what I take away from Berserk. It's really Guts' fight against fate. I think that I don't want to get too personal with this, but I really try to. It just really touches me personally, you know? It really does. Yeah. I don't know what else to say. I'm just kind of like rambling at this point. 27, what is it? 27 minutes and 33 seconds. I'm sure the pain and grief will hit me sometime this week, but it's more so just unbelievability more so than anything. It's like, anime and manga was such, maybe not nowadays, but it's at least older anime and manga is such a big hobby of mine, and Berserk is always talked about, and it might not have been present or as direct in my mind recently, but I always expected for myself to be able to, for Kentaro Miura to finish it on his own terms and for me to enjoy his story. And now we're not going to get that, you know? And I really just feel for him as a creator. It's just like, anytime I look at his awe-inspiring art, I'll just think about Miura, the creator, but Miura the man also, Because like I said, we can read all the interviews we want. At the end of the day, we know these creators through their work. And with people like Kentaro Miura, you really feel their life through their work. So even though I don't never had a personal conversation with them, I feel like I know him as my friend. And strangely enough, that's what makes that's what makes me, sad for his passing. It's like I almost like know this guy in a way. And he would have just been a good person to just get lunch with, Forget talking about Berserk. I just like to have like a beer with them, honestly. But I don't know if I've said everything I wanted to say concerning this, but I think this is a good, place for me to stop. I guess how do I want to end this? Of course, thank you, Miura. Um, I'm always gonna, cherish Guts. I'm always gonna cherish the other characters too. I always said my other favorite characters were Skull Knight, Zod, and then probably Grunbeld after that. Um, I want to say, you know, sorry, and I, you know, Any sort of emotional support that my friends need that I've made online here, I'm here for them. Because I know they're hurting at this news too. They've probably been thinking about it for so long. And, there's that saying that time heals all wounds, but I don't know how long this one's going to take, man. Man, Berserk, dude. It's so unbelievable, man. Like, people called Berserk the greatest manga ever made, and Miura the greatest, and it's just so unbelievable that it's not going to be finished by his own hand. Not just for this, like I said, not just for the sake of entertainment for us fans, but just for him as a man, for him as a person, for him as a creator. It's just, I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, I don't want to keep this going longer than I already have. But I guess what we can all do is just reread Berserk as much as we can, enjoy the anime opening, watch the anime, enjoy the music, listen to Forces on repeat. Just keep Berserk as a memory alive in our hearts and minds, and just find some sort of solace in that. Anyway, that's it from me. Thank you, Miura. That's all I gotta say, man. Thank you, Miura.